Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump isn't impeached until Nancy Pelosi brings the articles of impeachment to the Senate. This is Bloomberg. Trump isn't impeached until the House tells the Senate. According to the Constitution, impeachment is a process, not a vote. By Noah Feldman, December 19th, 2019. Now, this might be one of the people who actually, I don't know if this was one of the scholars who testified, but might be. But this is really interesting. McConnell runs the show now.
That's right. If you mess with the bull, you get the horns. Oh, Nancy tried to bring impeachment articles into the Senate. That's like giving Hunter Biden a board on the Ukraine's Burisma. Nothing good can come of it.
Trump isn't impeached until the House tells the Senate. According to the Constitution, impeachment is a process, not a vote. Now that the House of Representatives has voted to impeach President Donald Trump, what is the constitutional status of the two articles of impeachment? Must they be transmitted to the Senate to trigger a trial? Or could they be held back by the House until the Senate decides what the trial will look like, as Nancy Pelosi has hinted? The Constitution doesn't say how fast the articles must go to the Senate, but an indefinite delay would pose a serious problem. Impeachment, as contemplated by the Constitution, does not consist merely of a vote by the House, but the process of sending the articles to the Senate for trial. Both parts are necessary to make an impeachment under the Constitution. The House must actually send the articles and send managers to the Senate to prosecute the impeachment. And the Senate must actually hold a trial. If the House does not communicate its impeachment to the Senate, it hasn't actually impeached the president. If the articles are not transmitted, Trump could legitimately say he wasn't truly impeached at all. That's because impeachment under the Constitution means the House sending its approved articles to the Senate with House managers standing up in the Senate and saying the president is impeached. As for the headlines we saw about the House vote saying Trump impeached, those are a media shorthand, not a technically legal correct statement. So far, the House has voted to impeach, future tense, Trump. He isn't impeached until articles go to the Senate and the House members deliver the message.
Looks like you bit off more than you could chew. Sending articles of impeachment to the Senate. Tell me, what do you think we're going to do there? What do you think me, Mitch McConnell, is going to do? What do you think I, Mitch McConnell, is going to do? I'm going to swat that out of the Senate. Nancy Pelosi thinks she's going to lay it up, and I'm going to swat that you-know-what out. You could call me Dikembe Mutombo, because there's no way you're going to score on that.
There's no way Democrats win. At all. Mitch McConnell is now like a rock star, even though he isn't, but he really is. President Trump is not technically impeached. He hasn't been impeached yet. So they voted to impeach him. He's not impeached. They voted to impeach President Trump. He's not impeached. So they can say whatever they like. They can cheer. They can rejoice in an impartial and neutral and objective way, just like Debbie Wasserman Schultz with Bernie Sanders in 2016. Impartial and neutral and impartial. The reality, however, is that President Trump is not impeached unless Nancy Pelosi sends the articles of impeachment to the Senate. Then there's a statement saying, and this is according to the Bloomberg article, the president has been impeached, now there's a trial. They don't want Hunter Biden to testify. Just like that great 90s song, they should change it to, who that is, that's just my Hunter Biden. So you have a situation where Hunter Biden is allegedly, well, he's accused of allegedly smoking narcotics in a gentleman's club. That's just one of the litany of things. He has a paternity suit where he doesn't want his financial records disclosed. He lost the paternity suit. He now has to pay the child support. Hunter Biden is going to pay the money every month. He's going to have to. Okay, the judge is going to ask, number one, how much money does he make? The judge in the suit, the court case, demanded 3 years of his financial records, tax returns, but also the lady in the paternity suit has stated she wants to know exactly how much money Burisma paid Biden. So the notion that Biden had no conflicts of interest, that it wasn't all about money, it is a potentially criminal endeavor when you have a person out for money who is on the board of a Ukrainian, very corrupt Ukraine energy company, Burisma. Well, allegedly corrupt. Okay, it's being investigated right now in the Ukraine. His father was in charge of foreign policy towards the Ukraine. That is a conflict of interest. That's a conflict of interest in addition to the fact that, as I explained prior to this, in my segment prior to this one, two segments ago, today, if you state that Biden was only forcing the Ukraine to fire a prosecutor because of the corruption in the country, why wouldn't you believe that President Trump withheld the aid to make sure military assistance, lethal military assistance, by the way, withheld the lethal military assistance that President Obama did not give because there was corruption? That's the same excuse, the same defense that Biden gives. So you trust Biden because, that prosecutor wasn't investigating enough corruption. So, if you let him go, there's some kind of quid pro quo because he's so afraid of Biden. Biden is not going to become nominee. Okay? That's just obvious. He's not going to become nominee. And that's it. So it's going to be Clinton. Clinton's going to be nominee. And the notion that he was trying to look out into the future. So now, this is hilarious. They already had the Democratic debate. Did anybody know this? I knew that it was like around this time or today, whatever. I didn't really care. Nobody cares. It's a bunch of nonsense. It is a bunch of nonsense. And apparently Joe Biden tonight didn't even... Here's how to watch tonight's Democratic presidential debates. This is 3 hours ago on CNN. Nobody thinks that... Nobody even knows that there was a Democratic debate. So part of this here, Biden says he's willing to Biden says he's willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of blue-collar jobs in oil and gas. Okay, so this is the Daily Caller. Then he does this thing where he spoke. He didn't really speak for a long time. Then there was just a whole Biden won't commit to a second term. He's not even committing to a second term. That's hilarious. I'm not even elected to one term yet. And he will not be elected because he's Biden and he fought cornflakes. And he actually pressured the Ukraine to fire a prosecutor. The same prosecutor that was looking into the corporation funneling money to his son. Then check out my segment prior to this one. Durham seeks John Brennan's emails and communications with James Comey and others. It's all going down. This is going to be a fantastic year for politics. You definitely want to check out this channel and H.A. Goodman's other channel. But President Trump has not been impeached yet. He's not been impeached yet. So that's technically the reality. This is hilarious. They don't want Hunter. They don't want Joe. They don't want the intelligence operative. They don't want shifty. They don't want anyone to testify. Everyone that Republicans are going to ask for, they're going to say, no, you can't testify. So the vice president and his son have to testify. Okay, Republicans have to push for that in the Senate. If they don't testify, because this is about they can go ahead and put their hands over their ears all they like and just yell, "Oh my God," conspiratorial nonsense. The reality is this: they impeached or tried to impeach. It's not technically done yet. They voted. They impeached a president based on a phone conversation where they assumed the president was so fearful of Joe Biden that he looked into the future and said, we're going to investigate Biden. We're going to utilize the executive office and the Justice Department, the executive branch and the legislative. Oh, no, the executive branch. Well, the Justice Department is underneath, is within the executive branch. We're going to utilize the executive branch to go after our political opponent. This is nonsense. Nobody's afraid of Biden. He's not going to be the DNC nominee. Clinton is going to. This actually does two things for Clinton. It knocks the vice president essentially out of the Democratic primary. It, insults Trump or whatever. It gives Democrats some kind of catharsis to see that he's been impeached. Nobody cares. And then Clinton finds a way within the next month, 2 months, whenever, it doesn't matter. She's going to become nominee. Hillary Clinton is the only person who could possibly save the Democratic Party. And they've already hit the iceberg. They've hit numerous icebergs. So there's like the Titanic. The Democratic Party is the political version of the Titanic, except it keeps on hitting icebergs and still stays afloat. Clinton 2020 will see to, we'll put that to rest. Clinton 2020 is going to obliterate the Democratic Party, which will be very amusing. But before then, they have to prove they don't have any documentary or testimonial evidence. They have no documentary or testimonial evidence that President Trump tried to investigate either Hunter or Joe because he was afraid of them, and that he withheld military assistance specifically to interfere in the election. That's nonsense. If he withheld military assistance, it's the same reason, because he wanted to make sure it went to the government and not to the pockets of certain individuals. That's the issue is corruption. That's what Biden says forced him to force the Ukraine to fire a prosecutor. So the whole thing is convoluted, but what isn't convoluted is a very simple, clear-cut situation between a very corrupt energy company in the Ukraine that hires the vice president's son to be on its board of directors. That is potential misconduct, potential criminal activity. It's not wrong for President Trump to want to find out what was going on. You can't just look at politics and say, well, you know what? If you investigate glaring conflicts of interest and potential misconduct, you're actually interfering in the election. If that's the case, then Mueller interfered during the midterms. Or Mueller interfered for the 2020 election. They spent 3 years, and millions of people actually do believe that, well, he might not have been prosecuted, but, there's evidence there. They try to make it morally relative with Clinton. With Clinton, there was a litany, there's endless mountains of evidence. Comey literally covered up everything because he said there was no intent. You don't need intent. If you have top secret and special access program intelligence, number one, you find out how, if you're the FBI, very simple, you find out how that top secret intelligence managed to find its way on servers outside of the United States of America. If you don't know how, that's a big problem. You haven't conducted a criminal probe. It was a cover-up. But give me your thoughts below. This whole thing's hilarious. Trump has not been impeached. They don't want any of this to come out in the Senate. They don't want Hunter, the intelligence official, Adam Schiff. They don't want anyone to testify. Because the people who are... The accusation is that there were conflicts of interest. And those conflicts of interest have led to wrongdoing. You can ask a million questions in the Senate trial of Hunter and Joe Biden to warrant an investigation. Do you have a background in energy? Why did you don't? Okay, then why did Burisma hire you? Okay, what role did President Obama have? Because Vice President Biden, when he was in the Council on Foreign Relations, admitted to said that President Obama was backing him in the effort to fire Shokin, the prosecutor. Then you have Giuliani, and they say, well, Giuliani shouldn't be investigated. He should. Why? Why? If Loretta Lynch can speak to Bill Clinton about golf, Brexit, and grandchildren, Giuliani can investigate, and he has testimony, sworn testimony from Shokin and others that say that the vice president was forced the prosecutor out for political gain. And this isn't like some diplomat that gives, he was forced out by an official in another country withholding money, which is exactly what they were accusing Trump of doing. Give me your thoughts below. And then they say, well, with Trump there was corruption. No, with Biden, he was forcing somebody out because of corruption. Okay, and that's the reason that President Trump stated the military aid was withheld. The military aid eventually got to the Ukraine. So the issue is complete nonsense. But anyway, he is not impeached, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Well, if you read the Bloomberg article, but you heard it here probably on YouTube first. Give me your thoughts below. Check out H.A. Goodman's other channel right this second. Subscribe to it. It's below in the pinned comment.